Lesson 5-1, Part 2, the standard form of a linear equation. There's a lot of different ways to write the equation, and we're going to learn 3 or 4 different forms of the line, ways to write the line in this chapter. Today we're going to start with standard form. You're going to do this, I think the best place is either on a separate sheet of binder paper, you don't need graph paper, or it's probably just as easy to do it in all that blank space below the stuff on your note pages for lesson 5-1. There's 2 pages there, so there's plenty of room for what you're going to write down. So if you didn't get those already, pause the video and grab them. Here's the basic standard form equation of a line. AX plus BY equals C. And you'll always see the x and the y in the equation of the line. And when it's in standard form, they're going to be on the same side of the equation. That's the easiest way to tell that something is in standard form. X and y are on the same side of the equation. A, B, and C, those get filled in with numbers. They have to be real numbers, which is pretty much anything, with the exception of stuff over 0 or negatives inside square roots. So it's pretty, that's pretty rare. So don't worry too much about that. And A and B can't both be 0. One of them could be 0, but not both at the same time. And A and B are just the coefficients of x and y. So an example, we'll see some more soon, but an example of an equation in standard form would be 2x plus 3y equals 12. Okay, it's in standard form. A is 2, B is 3, and C is 12. So those all get filled in with numbers. Okay. What happens to the equation? What does it look like when A equals 0? Well, if A equals 0, then this x term disappears. You should sketch this in your notes. Right? And that would mean that something times y, right? B times y, whatever that happened to be, equals C. It equals a number. And right, so if we just imagine just substituting for those of you who are like, what? I don't understand where this is coming from. If B was 2 and C was 6, for example, right? And then we could solve for y and we would get y equals 3. Okay? And if y equals 3, that means for every value of x, y equals 3. Don't forget that horizontal lines are functions, right? And so we've got our example here. If we just counted this off, you could say that this is a horizontal line at y equals 3. It's a good idea just to memorize. When there's an equation just with y, you get a horizontal line. Anytime you have both x's and y's, diagonal line. What does the equation look like, and what happens to the graph when B equals 0? Well, if B equals 0, right, then the y term disappears, and we end up with an equation that we have something times x, or just x equals a number, like 5x equals 10, so x equals 2. And that means that for any value of y, x is 2. If we draw our picture to be this equation, then it would look like this. And you get a vertical line, which remember is not a function, but we can still graph it. It just doesn't happen to be a function. So anytime you have x equals, vertical line. Remember, x and y, diagonal line. X only, vertical line. Y only, horizontal line. So there's really only a couple things that you have to be able to do in this part versus understanding, right? The stuff we just did right now in the past 2 slides about horizontal and vertical lines, that's what we really need to understand, along with how to put equations in standard form. And that's what you have to be able to do, is put equations in standard form. So remember, when we have it in standard form, we have x and y on the same side. So we're just going to use whatever inverse operations we need to get x and y onto the same side. It should feel pretty basic algebra, just rearranging the equation. It doesn't matter which side of the equal sign. I always move whatever isn't is with the plane number away from the plane number, so it can be with the other variables. So in this case, I would just add 5 x's to both sides. And the x's always come first, so then that would be 5x minus 3y, or plus negative 3y, equals 14. And now it's in standard form. Easy cheesy. Right? On the next one, we have 6y minus 3 equals negative 3x. Write that one down, pause the video, and give it a shot. Now that you're back, hopefully you saw that you really had to do two things. Or if you wanted to move everything to the left, you had to do two things to get 3x to the left and negative 3 to the right. Or you could just take 6y away, and then it would be a one-step problem. It's still in standard form if c is on the left side of the equal sign. So we'd be left with negative 3, remember, because this was minus. And you can zip zap it if that helps you. Equals negative 3x minus 6y. Now this actually, we could also divide everything by negative 1 here if we wanted to. And then we would have another equation, but it actually would graph out to be exactly the same thing. 3 equals 3x plus 6y. And I really like when my equations have as many positive numbers in them as possible, because I feel like I make fewer arithmetic mistakes when I have positive numbers. But either one, either negative 3 equals negative 3x minus 6y would be fine, or 3 equals 3x plus 6y. Either one. Okay. Last thing, identifying a, b, and c in the standard form. So this is just, can you pick them out? Very straightforward. A is always the one in front of the x, b is always the one in front of y, and c is the plain number that doesn't have a variable with it. Right? So here, 2 is a, 3 is b, and c is 1. Now notice no x's, just a is 2, b is 3, and c is 1. No variables with it. Okay. For number 2, fill them in and then check back. So pause the video. You should have a is negative 6, b is 12, and c is 4. Okay. Given that kind of information, you can also go ahead and build the equations. Let me see where I have those. I'm pretty sure I have one more slide. Okay, let's skip that one for now. We'll come back to that one. Write the equation when a equals 0, b equals 1, and c equals 12. So we know we have 0x plus 1y equals 12. And then put it so that it looks like real algebra. So when we have 0x's, we don't write that in. And usually when we have 1y, we don't write the 1 in front. So really this equation would just be y equals 12, which remember is a horizontal line. And that's it. See how fast that was? Totally painless. See you soon.